Hello and welcome back to the Essex Allotment Farm. For those who are new to my channel, my name's Alex. I'm the founder of the Essex Allotment Farm, which for its most part is a 4 seasons market garden that sells chemical-free vegetables to end consumer via a veg box service or farmers markets. However, we do some consultancy. You'll be familiar with this site, which is the Tin Roof Cafe site in Malden, where we consult and manage the veg garden on their behalf. And today, as promised in one of my previous vlogs, I'm going to show you what we've planted out in the 2 polytunnels in a little bit more detail and show you how much crazy growth we've had in the last week or so. So let's jump straight into the video. I've got some watering to do and I'll give you a closer look. So we are in the right-hand polytunnel. We've got 2 polytunnels on this site, so I'll set the scene for you. They are 12 metres long by 4 metres wide, and we've got 2 beds and a generous path in the middle, and the setups in the 2 are exactly the same. This is season 2. Again, if you're not familiar with the journey so far, this is season 2 on this particular site. And last year we took loads and loads and loads of learnings from these polytunnels. First of all, before I was part of this site, these polytunnels were installed. They're not installed perfectly, and they've created some slight problems that we have to deal with throughout the season. The first one being that they get incredibly hot. So the long sides that I've positioned behind me are actually south facing. So even when we've got outside temperatures of as low as 9 or 10 degrees, but the sun's out and it's clear blue sky, the temperature skyrockets in here up into the mid-20s. And then obviously later in the season, when the outside temperature is also warmer, we last season experienced temperatures of over 40 degrees in these polytunnels. Now they've got a double door at one end and a single door at the other, so obviously in the height of the summer we'll have those doors open all the time, and it does help to regulate some of the temperature. But at this time of year the fluctuation in temperatures is quite high. That has an effect on growth, and we took all of these learnings from the first season. What we're going to have to do this year is get better circulated air and better ventilated air, and the 2 ideas that we're toying with is cutting out some of the bottom parts of the plastic at about 1 metre high and adding netting as an option, so we can close the plastic up and down and have it just netting to create airflow inside the tunnel to keep the temperature lower during the heights of the summer. Or it's using, we've got electric from a big solar farm available on this site, and in both polytunnels we could use fans and cool air fans to ventilate and circulate some of the hotter air as the summer goes on. So follow the channel, stick around, and we'll see how we deal with that later in the season. But at this time of year it does mean that we get absolutely fantastic early growth. So I'm going to spin the camera around and talk you through what we've actually put for our quick early greens crops, that we use these tunnels before we go really heavy on our summer crops. And I'll spin you around and show you how much they've grown in the last week or 2. So I'm stood at the front of the polytunnel next to the double doors. I'm going to just talk you through them right to left. So the first 3 rows are all spinach. And this spinach variety is, let me just pull the label out and read it. Should have been a bit more prepared. Bloomsdale long spinach. And we'll get a few croppings out of that before it gets too hot in here and bolts, which is what we're going with, or going for with all of these crops. We're going for quick, speedy leaf growth, multiple harvests in quick succession, really put the plants under pressure, then they bolt or struggle and we get rid of them and make space for our summer crops. So there won't be anything that's in here for longer than 2 or 3 months. So back to the rows. That was the first 3 rows of spinach. Next to those we've got pak choi, a white stem pak choi. Let me try and hold the camera steady. And then we've got a Mizuna leaf next to that. And we did put some onion crops in here just for an early onion crop this season. Again, we use hundreds and hundreds of onions in the restaurant, but we've put some speciality types in here. These are a pink variety. It's like a French pink onion. It's not the French pink onion, but there's no bulb growth yet, so you can't see that. But we're going to try and get a quick early crop to do some specific work with pink French onion type. And then we've got some strawberry runners that we've put in here just next to the paths. Again, I don't know how long they'll stay in here for. The other side, we've got Mizuna. Again, it's looking great, ready for a harvest. This is the quickest crop we've got, and it's ready for a harvest. It really needs picking sooner rather than later to encourage fresh growth. And then across these rows, a bit younger and a little bit further behind, we've got a red stem pak choi in here, but they're a little bit further behind. And we've actually got a wok bok cabbage variety, which we're going to use for raw kimchi and stuff like that. So we're probably not going to wait until they're fully bulbed up. Probably going to harvest them for a thick leaf as opposed to a whole bulb cabbage, but we'll see how that, it's a trial. We've never done that before, but it's a bit of a trial to get some early cabbage. I am worried about those bolting and it becoming too hot in here. But anyway, that's what we're doing. It's a quick crop leafy harvest in both of these polytunnels before we convert these tunnels over to our summer crops, which will be peppers, aubergines, chilies, tomatoes, cucumbers, etc, etc. We obviously use them just to store trays of things in here as well if we need the space. They're just, again, more strawberry runners that we're just potted up. And again, our strawberry patch is pretty full, it's pretty new, and it's looking pretty good, but so we don't necessarily need them. We might end up giving those away, selling them, etc, etc. But yeah, that's the tunnel on the right hand side. This is the one that's probably the furthest along, and that's where we're at in the right hand polytunnel. I've just given that a really good water on this lovely sunny day here in Chelmsford in Essex. It is a beautiful day today. I'm just going to spin you around, show you how good the weather is. It's a little bit windy, so forgive me if you can't really hear me particularly well. I've got the mic on. Garlic's looking great, which I showed you in an earlier video. Let's duck back in this polytunnel before we get blown away. But yeah, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So we were planting this one out in our last vlog. It's nowhere near as exciting. We have got some stuff in the ground, again, more leaf, multiples of the same thing. We've got green and red Mizuna, really young in here. More spinach and more leafy greens. Again, I won't show you in any detail because it's really hard to see on camera, but it's going to be pretty much a mirror, minus the onions and strawberries, of the first polytunnel. As I showed you, we could probably pick, or I actually could do a pick in the Mizuna now, but that went in a little bit earlier just because of a space issue we had with some trays, and it's a little bit further ahead. So yes, we could do a pick in it. We're going to try and hold out for some of the other bits to catch up. And on that subject, I think realistically, these little, especially the pak choi and the spinach, they only went in 10 days ago, and they were as small as the plants I've just shown you in the other polytunnel. The growth in here has been crazy. So I think realistically within a further 10 days, maybe even 2 weeks, especially the spinach, we'll be ready to harvest, no problem whatsoever, and we'll be able to get a nice leafy mix from all the different varieties that we've got in this polytunnel. And then what we'll do from a succession cropping point of view, we've obviously got this polytunnel that's a couple of weeks ahead of the other polytunnel. We'll multiple crop them and put the plants under some real pressure, really crop them heavy and quick. We won't expect them to be around long. And the moment they see signs of bolting, we'll take those out and replant with more summer crops in here. But we've started the very start of planting this next succession of the same similar kind of product, stuff for our leafy green underfleece outside in the outside beds, because the temperatures and weather is meant to improve, and stay warmer from the middle of next week. So that's the plan for early season, or I say it's not that early, but our start of our season, particularly on this site, the leafy greens growth and production here on the cafe site. If you have got any questions about the first part of this video, then give me a shout in the comments below, and I'll endeavour to answer as many as possible. Sometimes I'll just do them in the comments, sometimes I'll wait and do them in the video to give everyone a better opportunity to listen to some of the answers. And with that in mind, I'll answer a couple of questions that have come through recently. They are relevant. So we've seen some close-up shots of the mulch that we're using here in the on the Tin Roof Cafe site. It's a mulch that is a 50-50 green waste and manure horse manure / bedding mix. We've bought this in. This is not sponsored in any way, shape or form. We've bought and paid for this for a company that we're called Equigrow, that I have done some social media stuff for, but we paid for the mulch. The reason I've done some social media stuff for them is because they were kind enough to invite me along to their site to see the process. And the reason I wanted to do that is because there's been so much emotion around horse manure and compost quality, of which I've got caught up in as well. And so I visited the site first before we bought anything. I was really impressed with the production. Look, I'm not an expert when it comes to mass production of compost, but from what I could see and what they showed me, it looked like a really big, clean, well-managed operation. The product looked great on site, and so we bought it and went for it, and we went for there. Like I said, it's a horse manure and bedding mixed with green waste compost. It's a mulch. It's quite woody, but they're flaky wood chips, not thick. They're almost like big wood shavings as opposed to wood chips. And it's obviously mixed it with loads of the natural beneficial things you get from horse manures and green waste compost. They don't cook the green waste. They let it sort of compost down in huge, massive, great big, 50-meter long piles. And yeah, anyway, you can go to my Instagram if you want to see more about that visit. But it's working really well so far. There's been little to no weed pressure in it whatsoever. And obviously we see that in this polytunnel. If there are weed seeds in here with the heightened temperatures, if there was weed seeds in the mulch, they germinate and sprout up very, very quickly. I can hand on heart honestly say that we've pulled maybe 3 or 4 max out of this compost, and it could have been there before. They could have come in transit. So I'm really impressed with it so far. So that's the mulch that we're using, which was one of the questions. I've never used it before, so I can't tell you if it's brilliant or whether it's going to revolutionize my growing. I really can't. All I can tell you is so far so good. Another question that I get quite often, and I guess this is more in relation to the original farm site, is how did we find the land? There's loads of people that are thinking about doing a version of what I do, market gardening on a bigger scale as opposed to just allotmenting, or starting a flower farm or something customer facing. And access to land is one of the biggest and hardest parts of what I do. For me, I was very, very, very lucky, but I do think this is the only and best way to go about finding that land. And I effectively reached out and cold called farmers in my local area. And I was very lucky that one farmer in particular, took a chance on me, let me rent the land to start off with, so I could see what I was doing. And, we've now struck up a really good working relationship on their farm. I guess the stumbling blocks are, if you want to find an allotment sized piece of land, it's relatively easy. Council websites and stuff like that for allotments, but you can't grow for, sale on most of those sites. And there's like a right move for farmland, but that tends to be like 5, 6, 70, 100 acres with houses and God knows what else going on. So it is difficult, that in between stage, if you want just 1 acre, 2 acre. But what I would say is there's lots and lots of farmers out there that are looking to diversify, looking to rent or sell small odd-shaped pieces of land that perhaps don't really serve a purpose for them. In my example, it's a couple of odd-shaped fields that it's not really worth the hassle them getting their big combine harvesters and cereal crop equipment into, because it's awkward and odd shaped and small in comparison to what they're used to dealing with. So yeah, that's how I'd go about finding land. I'd go out there and strike up some relationships and network, and see if there's any farmers in your local area that are looking to diversify and take the risk and try something different. I think the last question I'll answer today, and it's probably not going to be as full and as detailed as you'd like, is I think someone, I can't remember who it was, asked about the economics of it all. And does it actually work? Like, am I making any money? I think is always a question. It might not have been this specific one that I'm thinking about, but people are always interested to see if I actually make any money doing this. You know, I think there was questions in there about the stress levels, workload. I think there's loads to it, and it's probably a video for, you know, itself. You know, a video that I should probably do on its own. But just as a generic sort of overview, am I going to make millions of pounds doing this? No, absolutely not. The margins are way too small for small scale veg production. I guess from an economics point of view, and the only way you can really make money from if you just took that part of the business out of it is what we do, and that is to sell to spit it out, Alex. Sell direct to end consumer. And that is still the fundamental and the main source of income for us guys as a group of people, or well, not a group of people, as a business. I'm the sole owner of the business. I guess ultimately I decide what the money gets reinvested into and how much I take as a wage. But it is profitable. You have to be smart. Productivity has to be high. Costs have to be low. It is a basic, you know, economic model in the way we do things, and we do have to sell to direct to end consumer. But I guess certainly in these early years, you know, only 4 seasons into this project, the business has been propped up by these additional. Certainly, my wage definitely has been money for me to live on has been propped up by these additional sites and parts of the business that we need to do. So the long and short of it is, can this veg box service, farmers market, small scale agriculture make money in its crudest sense of the word? Yes, absolutely. There are small scale farms out there that are doing exactly that, and people are earning a decent living, doing something that they love on a relatively small scale. I think you've got to have a love for it, because the working hours are crazy. You know, I earned a lot more money when I did work for a major retailer in London in their head office and doing what I did in a previous life. The income's more steady, it's more guaranteed. So there's all those things in a young business. But I do believe, or there's people out there that are showing that it's possible, and we're showing it's possible. But in the early years of my young business in particular, it's definitely propped up by some of these other projects that we do. We do some farm-specific social media consultancy. We do this type of thing where we manage and consult on other people's land and for them for various different reasons. And in this early stage of the business, they are more lucrative than for the hours that you put in, they're more lucrative than selling vegetables if you put a cost in against it all, which we obviously do. However, the long term, if you ever want to make decent money, there's only so many of these kind of sites that want or need help that we can offer them, and the farm in itself and the veg production has to be the main part of the business and continue to grow and get to a point where you've got hundreds of weekly customers, regular farmers markets. And once you've cracked it and got to that point in the farm, and the production of vegetables is at that scale, you know, where you're growing on 1-2 acres fully, you know, for at least 30 to 40 weeks of the year, then yeah, absolutely, it can be profitable. But the hours are long, the effort, the stress, the time, like any young new business, is much, much greater. And the wage that I get from this doesn't cover my hours per se that I put into it, but not many young businesses do, especially in agriculture. So I guess that's an overview of. It's a bit of a wishy-washy answer, but like I said, I think it probably needs some more detail, some numbers put to it, and maybe at the end of a season I will share that. But like I think the question was worded, it is quite sensitive. It's, you know, there's not many businesses out there that just share everything that they're earning and making, and unless they have to. So yeah, I guess that's where I'll finish the answer to that question. Okay, I've been waffling for quite a while now, so I think that's where I'm going to end the video. Like I say, just drop any questions. I can answer more of them. I will get better at answering your questions. Maybe I'll do some of them in more detail in a video of its own. But until the next one, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share it, do all that stuff that helps my channel grow. You never know, I might make a bit of money out of doing this as well, which will always help the business. So see you in the next one. Bye-bye.